So we're losing 2 council members here. This is their last meeting. They'll be replaced first of the year as we move forward. Dwayne is not here tonight, obviously, so I'm going to run the meeting. Dwayne he had some surgery. He's home from the hospital, got home this afternoon, so we're all tickled about that. I've been texting him back and forth, and he seems to be doing real well. So we'll go ahead and ask Valerie to lead us in prayer here before we get started for one last time.
Dear Father, we thank you for today, and we thank you for this beautiful weather we had to enjoy today. And as I think of my time that I've spent sitting here and talking to people and all the things that I've got to be a part of, I'm just thankful for that, and I thank you. I pray for Dwayne and for his health, and that he will recover and become stronger than ever, and that life will be good for him. I pray for Larry and his health, and we thank you, Father, for the opportunities that you give us each and every day. But most of all, I want to thank you for life and for being a part of other people's lives and making a difference. In these things we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Valerie. Clerk, go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Mrs. Hargan.
Present.
Mr. Grant.
Present.
Mrs. Moss.
Present.
Mrs. Carnahan. Mr. Voorhees.
Present.
Mr. Barse.
Present.
Okay. Mr. Grant.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? That would be on 11/13.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written from 11/13/2023.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Do we have any citizens petitions tonight? Anybody that wants to ask the council for anything or talk about anything? This is your time.
Yes, I do.
Could you please stand up, state your name, sir?
Thomas Farley. Say, I want to know where you folks stand on the motel phone on my building over there, knocking the windows out, knocking the eaves off of it, and putting a hole in the roof. Now, it's been, I don't know how long since that building's been down. I haven't heard hide nor hair from nobody but Scott. Windows are still busted. Wind, water, snow, everything's getting in there. Critters. So I need to know where the city stands on this.
I didn't know anything about
I
it.
didn't either.
I didn't know anything about it either.
I had reached out to him when Mr. Gentry was here, knowing that there was windows broken, that was our responsibility. And I tried to get a chance where your schedule, my schedule would align, where we could meet, discuss that. You had mentioned the grading was not right, and it would be runoff towards your building, which those two things there, without question, I think, the contractor admitted the city, and that was our doing. When it comes to the roof and everything else, I told you that'd be something that's a bigger discussion outside of my scope, because there's evidence and photos that the roofs were in poor shape prior to the hotel coming down and everything else. So that's something that I can't speak to. I know our engineering company and others have photos, they have videos, before we ever even took on the buildings from Main Street, and Main Street got them from, previously. So that's my update, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate
that's
that very
conversation that's
much.
taking place.
So if your house is not painted very good, it's peeling, I come along with spray paint, it doesn't matter because the paint ain't very good.
Mhm.
The roof kept the water out. That's the main thing. And when the building fell on it, and she did it twice, knocked eaves off, knocked windows out, and tore my building up. Now you guys put nets, plastic nets up there to keep stuff off the first time it fell. So here I'm sitting with a building that's getting molded up with no response from the city after it was tore up from the city tearing down the hotel.
In my knowing the whole situation, I've been on the ground a lot with Mr. Someone else, and talking with HWC, our HWC rep. We have drone footage that showed them before we ever got them, back when, we're talking way back. I think that was even before we got them, when we blocked off the road at the one point because of safety. So there's all kinds of stuff. And if there's evidence that the building fell and we had ownership or something, then obviously we need to do what we need to do. I don't know, I can't speak to whether we caused, the hotel caused the damage, didn't cause it. I know it's been an eyesore and I'm glad it's down, and we do need to do the grading and glass replacement at a minimum, I know. I can't speak to the other and commit to that because I don't know if we're at fault or not at fault. So I have to defer to photos and drone footage and everything else that they had prior to that.
Thank you, Scott. Eric?
I don't know the details of this, but I do know that the contractor the project is still open. It's not being closed out. So if there is responsibilities that he needs to address, we can still make that happen. But it sounds like there's some discussion needs to happen.
Well, and Mr. Gentry was perfectly fine with doing both those things. I talked to him. I've talked to him several times in between. The roof, that is a whole nother story. We have, Todd has tons of photos and everything else prior to the demolition taking place. And this would be something, in my opinion, if it did happen and the building was damaged because of falling prior to that, it was before the demolition.
Okay.
Is that safe to say,
Yes.
Tom? I mean, that
First time
happened.
it fell down, when you guys heard the big boom, and everybody thought the building was falling completely down. Then you guys put the nets up after that.
That's
You
when,
remember
that's
that?
when we had the public safety, we blocked off the road, we did everything there. So I just don't recall the dates. But Mr. Gentry safely, he's absolutely said that we would take care of that and make sure, because that is a very, very focal point now for the city coming in and with the parking lot there for, the next 5 years. So I just think we need to get the powers that be that have the evidence together so we can get make a determination. But it is winter approaching, so I think we need to proceed with whatever we need to replace the glasses.
Is that on the city or is that on the contractor? Contractor should have insurance to cover that, right?
And bonds.
They bonded, so it's probably not going to be on the city to do that. It's going to be the contractor's responsibility.
And he admitted, he said he would take care of that. I know they were diverted with the fuel spill issue where they had to divert to Michigan for several big projects up there and stuff, but I would be more than happy to contact him. I just want to meet and see how you want it graded, because I see what you mean by the grading where the water runoff would run to your building. So we got to find a point there where it doesn't run off all there. So if it's just more dirt, and then if you're okay with do you want it just grass and planted like we
Grass
did?
is fine, it looks great there, it's just that like we talked about, before they started, it went down like this perfectly, the alley did. And then after it was done, it was down perfectly, but over here is a ditch. It's going right up, that's where all the water's gonna gather up.
So I think primarily it's just more fill dirt, and we'll get it to where it'll run off back to the back where the old gas pipes are, and it'll kind of create a spot to where it'll go over towards the parking lot. And I can gladly
It just needs some more dirt, a little bit of seed.
dirt and then reseed it and everything else.
Yeah, that's not a big deal there.
And then the glass. Have you gotten any estimates or anything, Mr. Hora?
So,
Okay.
if I could, but, have my carpenter come up with an estimate, if that's what's needed.
I don't know. Do you want to contact Greg about it, or you?
I can get Todd and Greg together for a meeting.
Let's say it might be more appropriate for Eric to contact them rather than us.
Yeah.
To contact.
The windows ain't that big to be having a big deal made out of them. They just need fixed. Because they're only like 8 by 10 little panes. It's not like a kitchen window or something high dollar.
My only thing is just, I think those are the metal frames, so I don't know how those would get.
It's caulked in. I did
Oh, it's all
replacing
caulked?
They
windows,
just
Oh,
get
okay.
glazed in.
but they was all busted out when I bought it from Hoffa.
Okay.
So they're just caulked in. It's a small project. The glass is only like this. And I think there's 4 or 5 of us.
I think there's 6.
So, it's not.
but that, you're right, that's a small project, but before winter hits, which is already here, closing that up and getting some more fill dirt, I think is.
I'll have our field guy get hold of Greg tomorrow.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other citizens petitions? Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Department heads, Mr. Swank is out on vacation today. He'll be back tomorrow. He's gonna burn up some vacation, so he'll be off on Mondays and Fridays till the end of the year. Chief Miller,
We're currently running an application process to fill 2 slots. This was approved in the November meeting. I think the 2023 year went outstanding. I'd like this council for their support and allowance to get the Attica Police Department where it is today, and look forward to moving into 2024. Thank you.
thank you. Chief Little,
The only thing I have to report is we are starting to develop the application process for the 4 part-time individuals for next year. We'll probably start running that in March, so we have time to get gear ordered and everything else, and then they'd start in June once the territory kicked in. So looking forward to that.
this is Broadwater.
I handed out year-end financials for your review. Also, we are going to go ahead and wrap up the financials for the year. Do you want to do the public hearing under the new business? Okay, all right. I've handed out several pieces of information. One is the additional appropriation ordinance, and we'll do that during the public hearing under new business. But you have a list of what has been published, and then you also have the ordinance itself. In addition to that, we need to move some funds within departments between categories. I have a resolution for that. We can either address that now or we can do that under new business. I think I put it under new business.
I think it is. Yep.
Okay. But hopefully we're not going to have another meeting this month. We should have everything wrapped up tonight. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. We'll touch back with you here under new business here in just a minute. Unfinished business, Harrison Steel abatement schedule. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Bars.
Thanks. So Attica, or Harrison Steel has requested an abatement for 3 pieces of equipment, and you've agreed to declare the area an economic revitalization area. Can I have those 2 ordinances? And so you signed the declaratory resolution in November, and then the RDC met last week and agreed to that, the amounts on your abatement schedule that were 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 10, 10, if you recall. And so the next step, there are really 2 things we do tonight, is to pass a confirmatory resolution, which just puts it into place, the abatement schedule. And because they had purchased the equipment before applying, they need to waive the requirement that they have the abatement before the equipment gets purchased, which is routine. Like more often than not, that happens. But you've got to do a resolution waiving that non-compliance for buying first, abating second. So there are 2 copies of the confirmatory resolution, needs a number, and 2 copies of the waiver of non-compliance for you to consider. That's already numbered. And that would conclude the Harrison Steel abatement after those 2 are considered.
Just want to look at these before
They match the declaratory
Those are the
resolution.
resolutions.
They're like cut and pasted, just so you know.
Are they the same? These the
Yes.
same?
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
It's 2 copies of the same thing.
Larry, I think you guys have the other one too. There was 2 of each one.
Yes.
We got both copies of the one,
You've got
the A.
This is,
Yeah, that's it. I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2023-1211A, the conformatory resolution for the city of council of Attica for the revitalization abatement for Harrison Steel.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
Have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Scott, you want to go
I
ahead and
make a
sign?
motion to approve resolution number 2023-1211B, resolution with the city of Attica regarding waiver of non-compliance to Harrison Steel regarding the abatement, purchase equipment prior to the abatement.
We have a motion to approve 2023-1211B. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, Scott, do you want to sign that?
There's one more matter related to that I just remembered. So on their statement of benefits form that they submitted, on page 2 are some spaces that the city council is to fill in. And one of those spaces, and the only one that's important for tonight, you've got the area declared an economic revitalization area, and you can select how long that designation remains on that area. And you have a 10-year abatement schedule, and those are two different things. And so what you normally do is you look at how much time they need to get their equipment purchased and keep the window open that long, and usually not any longer. And so I ran it by Tom Pittman. Did he agree with 2 years as an appropriate window for that economic revitalization area? Meaning, if they came back for another abatement, they'd have to come in and apply for it again and go through the process again and maybe get a different abatement schedule again. This would apply to just the 3 machines basically that they've already purchased. So
Which they've got one, I think that was delayed till they said till June of 2024 or something now.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
So maybe you want to say, well, 2 years ought to cover it, then that's just next year. So I would need a motion to limit the ERA, the Economic Revitalization Area designation, to 2 years. Or a motion to do that.
would you like to do that, Scott?
I make a motion that we approve, is that, you got a resolution number?
It's on page 2 of that, their statement of benefits, and I apologize.
For the ERA for a 2-year window for the abatement equipment to be fully purchased and installed.
Have a motion, have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. There's that one.
And are both of A's signed?
I think so.
I've got 2 copies of B's, and I've got 1 copy of A.
Got to get the other one.
Scott, do you have the other copy of A?
I sent it back that way, yeah.
I gave it to you, Larry.
There's one right here.
Oh, right here.
Oh,
You didn't give it to me.
I didn't
Sorry.
sign,
Well,
I didn't sign the second one probably.
do you need, does he need to sign the second one?
Yeah.
All right, yep, I didn't sign it. I was over here hiding it. Probably gonna take it home, put some of these classified
Same.
documents in her house
Yeah.
or something.
You'll get a souvenir.
In your Corvette.
Yeah. That's not mine.
Yeah, you'll put it with Mom's
One
Corvette.
that's above ground.
Okay, here's the second one.
Thank you. Lots of paperwork.
Yes.
Mr. Grant,
Yes, sir.
you got that letter from the session?
I did. I'm gonna read that here. It's on the, I've got it at the bottom of the agenda.
Okay.
Nancy, or Joanne was kind enough to write it in for me.
She did something right today.
What?
I'm sorry. Nothing.
What did you say?
I didn't say
Mr.
anything.
Voorhees?
I didn't say anything.
Protein cake, protein cake.
Starting trouble with Joanne tonight.
It's like-
We're live streaming.
Sorry about that, Joanne. Camera's facing me anyway, so.
I just want to make sure that we don't have anything else when Mr. Barks gets back in here that we've got to do on this before we move on.
You're gonna be like Andy. I'm gonna have to remind you every time, aren't I, Scott?
Let's see, poke the bear and look what happens.
This little USB one.
I'm just waiting on you.
Was there anything else that?
Not
we
with
needed
the
on this?
abatement, no, that's all
Okay.
squared away.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on in unfinished business then. Hannah Nuevo and Klein is here to talk about the Wabashi Park improvements.
Yes.
Yay.
And I know we've got some people from the park
This will
board
be-
here, so
Great. Well,
everybody
thank,
can hear this.
thank you for your time tonight. So I handed out a packet for you of all the renderings and exhibits that we've worked on so far. So my name is Rebecca Mahoney. I'm a landscape architect and project manager with HWC Engineering and been leading this project. So this first page that you have in the handout was kind of the original concept diagram that was developed for the park of the desired amenities. So we had an event stage, an open lawn for that event area, playground, pickleball courts, outdoor seating and plaza space, basketball courts, dog park, parking, and there's the existing restroom down there on the site. So that's kind of where we started this process with, was that kind of diagram, and then also the idea of potentially wanting a splash pad down there in the future as well, and to include that into a master plan concept. So we came back, and this next page you have is an overall concept plan for the whole entire site. So up here in the corner, you have the event stage. This would be the playground and splash pad. And then we have the dog park that would have a large breed area and a small breed area with a separated entrance, as well as an amenity area for people to sit and watch their dogs at the park. We have a basketball court and 3 pickleball courts, and then parking on both the north and the south side of the site. So this is kind of the overall site plan. If you go to the next exhibit, this is kind of just an understanding of existing utilities out there. There's quite a few, and we had to be creative in the way that we laid the elements out on the site. One thing, there's a very large overhead electric line, so we really didn't want to have to relocate anything on the site for you because it's going to eat into your construction budget. We want to put that towards a playground or to pickleball or basketball, so we really kind of worked the site around those obstacles to avoid having to relocate them, and that's kind of what this diagram is showing, those overhead utilities as well as underground utilities. And then also another reason, like kind of where the splash pad is located, the splash pad needs to be within 300 feet of a restroom facility. So that's kind of why we placed that in that location that's within the 300 feet. So in the future, when you come in and put a splash pad, you won't have to build a new restroom facility for that splash pad. And just a few other things about the site. There is an existing floodway here that we are staying out of, so we don't have to do permitting with DNR for that. But we are in the flood fringe area, so we've kind of taken that into consideration with the site grading. This next page is kind of just showing the phasing diagram for the site. So this red area here would be phase 1, and the blue area would be phase 2. And we are currently working on 60% plans for phase 1 is what we're in the process of. So we're in the middle of design right now for the site. So this next page is really showing you phase 1, what's included for phase 1. So we have the playground, the basketball court, the pickleball courts, and then the parking on the north and south side. And there's a total of about 36 spaces that we were able to fit in around the utilities, so.
It's good.
I guess a question.
Mhm.
We all know that when it floods, even though that's the flood line, it gets up that far.
Yes.
So that we don't lose parking and we lose a basketball court and things like that.
Mhm.
And I don't know, Larry, you've been here way longer than me, but it gets up there really close to where I know we're out of a DNR flood, but are we gonna do grading so that we will
Yes, so we.
have less of an impact or potential impact?
Yes, for sure. We've been experiencing in other parks, working with other parks departments, that they've had flooding on their tennis. Obviously, flooding destroys your court, so we don't want you to invest money in that. So we've been working through the grading to elevate that side of the site for both the playground and for the courts. As well, there is going to be a future mechanical building for the splash pads, so trying to elevate that up a little bit. So, that's going to bring in some fill to the side, which is coming into the cost estimate a little bit. But I really think that it's probably worth that investment to do that.
Well, that's why I didn't know if we
Definitely.
actually like a flood wall or something
Mhm.
up a few feet or something would diminish that a great deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we can look into that a little bit more, make sure that we're taking that into account a little bit more. So these next few pages are just some precedent imagery to get an overall idea of the whole site, not just phase one, but what it'll be in the future. So what your splash pad could look like. You really want to have, instead of, there's some splash pads that are just jets and plazas. So you really don't want that because it is in a flood area. So you really want ones that are, would be like overhead and features more so. They're more adaptable to flooding than your jets are. And then we have some, what your dog park could look like. You could put some kits in there, dog course kits in there, as well as some amenities. And then we've kind of explored some options of stages through this process as well, and kind of looking at that. So where that stage is positioned on the site, it's also looking towards the river area as well. So kind of think of maybe some open backed shelters as well, that where you can really see that view. So there's some custom imageries of that. We've also, since our last meeting, been working through playground exhibits. So with the playground, we have two kind of like options here to present that we've been working through. This first one is with landscape structures play equipment. So you can kind of see that there'd be a structure for ages 5 through 12, ages 2 through 5. There'd be some spinning equipment as well as teeter-totting and swings. So this is probably your most expensive option that we're presenting and what we've included in the cost estimate. And then also in the middle of the playground, so we have engineered wood fiber with some seats around here. And then these are your play equipment and some landscape beds in there as well. And then here in the center, we have a memorial, because out there when we were doing the site visit, we saw that there was a memorial on site for the house fire. So we have included that in there with the seat wall, landscaping, and a specimen tree to really honor that, and then working with someone local for the plaque there and figuring out what to say on that plaque. So that's kind of the first option for that. The second option that we're showing is Burke Playground. And your money does go further with this one. So we have this big play structure with shade, which is very nice, as well as swings, spinning things, and teeter-tottering objects, and still keeping that memorial in the middle. So much less expensive if you went with that one, or there's a few other that we can think of too for options on that. And if you go to the next page, that's kind of some precedent imagery for the memorial as well. So we're showing the limestone seat wall that parents can sit on, enjoy, watch their kids, as well as some plaque options. You can either mount that directly to the seat wall, or you could have like a stand-up sign plaque within the garden area, and some ideas for some specimen trees in there as well. Currently, we are at, like I said, we are at 60% through this process, and just submitted that to the steering committee on Friday. And we went through the budget, and we're currently $134,000 over budget. And there are many reasons for that. The playground, originally we were planning to have the dog park with the stage and the sports courts. Dog park is a lot less expensive. Playground equipment, you just, depending on what you go with, it can be very expensive by the time you're putting in the play surfacing as well as the equipment, install costs, shipping, all that. It really just elevates that cost. And we have some ideas for value engineering, like obviously going with a manufacturer who is less expensive can save some costs, like Burke. Or if you maybe eliminate some concrete areas that we're showing, do half of the parking now, half in phase 2. Maybe you put the basketball court into phase 2. And then we can also list some as bid alternates when we go to bid in the new year. So we can list the basketball court as a bid alternate and see where it comes in at. We have a pretty high contingency in there right now, which is 15%, which is pretty standard at the current moment too, with the way the things have been. So we have those options. And then there's also other things you could do too, like there's crowd source funding where you can do like patronicity. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but we've used that on other projects. Most recent one was Winchester Splash Pad. Their bid came in really high. So they did crowdsource funding for their splash pad and were able to get a matching grant and were able to put that in and complete that project. So that's something you could consider also to make up that difference too.
So when you mentioned over the 134 over budget, is that phase 1 and phase 2?
That's just phase 1.
That's just phase 1.
Mm-hmm. And we are working with the $650,000 construction budget. So
Yes, the pickleball court's got to go there. He's not here to speak for
Well,
himself.
just for everybody's information, the mayor and I met with them here several weeks ago, and as she mentioned, originally the dog park and the amphitheater were in phase 1, and we asked them to swap that around so that I thought that the playground should be a priority to get the playground in, and so that's why we're where we're at today. Some of the park board members are here. Did you guys have any comments or questions or anything? I'll kind of open it up to you guys.
I do have a question about this splash pad. Is that like set in stone? Do we have like a plan for that? Or, because we were not under the impression that the splash pad was funded.
It's not,
It's
it's in
not.
phase 2
yeah,
right
it's
now.
in phase 2.
So when we get the money for it, phase 2 is already engineered and ready to go. We just need to pull the trigger on it.
Okay.
We did an overall concept plan to see how all the elements would fit together and then broke those out into phases. So the stage, the dog park, and the splash pad would be in phase 2, a future phase.
Okay.
And I thought the pickleball courts was supposed to be 4 courts.
Originally it was, and we had to do some value engineering there, and it ended up being 3.
Yeah. And also just the working around the utilities that were kind of unknown at the time before we had survey taken of the site, and finding out, it's going to be very costly to remove utilities or relocate them. That is going to eat into your entire budget, where you're not going to be able to install actual park items and amenities to relocate those to fit them. So we kind of worked around those as well.
Mr. Grant, do you know if we proceeded with anything on that property we talked about that would be extra space for this project?
Well, I don't know that this project's going to be in that space, but
Oh, I thought it was like right up against it or
it
something.
was right there at the end of the street, and we were going to buy that property. Do you
It's
know
done.
is it done?
Oh, good.
Oh, so it is done.
Thank you.
I thought we
It's
were
done.
doing that, but
It's done.
great.
As
That's
far as
further up.
equipment
Right.
goes, I really think that we should definitely look at the equipment that was more geared towards the littles. Specifically because the equipment that we just put in at Ravine Park, I know that I have a 4-year-old, and it's a little terrifying having her go that high up. So I did love the fact that this playground equipment, you said there was a
Yes.
section that was like 2 to 5.
In the first one, but in the second one, we can also switch other equipment out and add in a two
Yeah, I
slide,
think
like
that's
hot lot, yeah.
definitely something that we should take into consideration, just because the Ravine Park program, or not park program, the Ravine Park playground equipment, is definitely geared towards older kiddos. So those smaller little ones can't really get that high up, so that's definitely something to think about as we're picking out the equipment itself.
Mhm. And these are just options. We're not quite there where we've like set in stone what that equipment is. It's just what we presented, what we submitted last week. So we still are going through that process right now. But yeah, I know when we a lot of places, other communities don't have a lot of top lots, and it's a big need. So it's definitely something to consider.
And will there be more handicap accessible playground equipment at this playground, do we think? That we could possibly talk about that too, more handicap?
We do have, we can focus on that a little bit more, and then in the second one, we do have like a few items that are, we're putting in engineered wood fiber. That's not the most ideal when you're talking about accessibility. Again, it's the funding, it's just more expensive. Doing poured in place would be the preferred for accessibility, but it's far more expensive than engineered wood fiber. So we're suggesting engineered wood fiber. It's still accessible, but it's just not the preferred, if that makes sense. And then the equipment should be up to ADA requirements as far as that's
Like
concerned.
swing options, right? Easy.
Yeah,
Alternative.
like a basket swing, it's for platforms, so yeah.
Questions? Except for, do you think that I could have a copy of those for our next meeting? Thank you. That's all I've got.
Just a side note, I did, we expanded the park board by 2 members, one from the school, one from the library. I did hear back from the library, and they discussed it, but they wanted more details on when you guys meet and that sort of thing, and what the requirements would be. So I told them I'd get back with them, but I may get a hold of you, and I wasn't even sure exactly when you guys met, so.
We met last Tuesday, so our next meeting will be in January, but
Okay, I'll get back with you on that.
thank you.
If you guys don't have anything else, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Love the drawings.
Yeah.
Concept is great.
Mhm.
Can we have it done by January?
Next year.
2 years.
Next on the agenda is Gen X Dolphin Solar.
Hey, Mr. Grant,
Wayne,
Council. Wayne DeLong, Gen X Solar, here with Jenny Hartley, Kyle Resentarius, attorney on the project specific to the tax abatement conversation with the county. He's a real estate attorney with Fenton's, and then our local rep, Mr. Ted Campbell. So again, here to speak about Dolphin Solar. Mr. Barsis, does the group have copies of it? No, they do not. Okay. Happy to hand those out.
I really just got some confirmation on some terms.
So with your local ordinance, we have entered into the process and nearly through it. I believe waiting for the minutes and some other things to see how the BZA process closed out. But that BZA process was November 8th. And as part of that local ordinance, where the language speaks to an economic development agreement as well as a transportation plan. And so what's we brought here for starting of a discussion is that economic development agreement. Kyle is here, can speak to how that would work just collectively with the county with this particular project, which I'm not certain what level of familiarity you have with this particular project. No piece of it is within the city's corporate boundary. There's a decent amount of it, about 1,500 acres or so of the project is within within your ETJ. And so the tax dollars are not a conversation that we can even get into in terms of the topic, because those are tax dollars collected by the county, distributed, how that may be in the future. With our economic development agreement, we're proposing is simply cash as part of the payment schedule based upon our delivery of the project in 2027. And so the number that would be in the paperwork here is $600,000, which would be paid in 4 installments. But that's in summary, just the very quick analysis of the EDA. Happy to speak to more granular details. Kyle can speak to just collective conversation of what the county will be receiving as a proposal in terms of the documents. Something we're not here this evening saying this has to be wrapped up tonight. This is a part of this conversation, and happy to take questions.
We've had this reviewed as well, and that $600,000 was negotiated today in response to Mike suggesting, after a call with their safety consultant or safety person, that they will be actively involved, his department will be actively involved in safety at this site. And so he requested an additional $100,000 be added to the $500,000 that was originally offered to cover training and personnel and runs out there and equipment in the future. And they agreed to that. And then we had 4 other minor changes to the agreement that were not incredible changes. Just one of them was a typo and 3 of them were minor adjustments to things that they adopted all of that. So we've been through this, me and the other attorney have been through this, and that's what we were expecting to see tonight.
And I would point out on page 2, number 3, the manner of payment needs to be adjusted to $150,000 payments instead of $125. It's still reading based upon the prior number.
Yeah, I'll take that clerical error to, I printed these out as I was in the car, and then the judge was working with my partner while I was traveling, so we'll get that slip sheeted tomorrow with the version that the project approved. So again, as Wayne said, my name is Kyle Resetaritz. I'm a real estate attorney in Indianapolis with Denton. My partner, Mary Salad, has been working closely with Mr. Bars on this document. You know, I think your ordinance is a perfect mechanism of making sure that developers like GeneX and Dolphin Solar are good members of the community, good corporate citizens, and that there are elements of this economic development agreement that afford that opportunity. You know, one of those that Wayne mentioned is certainly an economic incentive payment, right? So a payment, 4 payments, $150,000 each, totaling $600,000 that the city can use for economic development purposes. There is a provision here that affords that the project would pay directly to the city or a city designee. That could be a foundation or some other entity for development of the city for economic development purposes. But the other things that I think you can see and be rest assured of are in section 5 and section 6 of the document that speak to certain development standards and certain road use standards. Certainly, as you imagine the construction of a large project, there's going to be certain uses of roads. Now, predominantly those roads will be within county jurisdiction, but may also fall within the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction. So we've negotiated certain provisions that will speak to the project's requirement to repair any roads. There's also a notice provision, so if the city notices any roads are damaged, those have to be promptly remedied. And I believe one of the changes that was made just here today was within 90 days of notification, which is surely satisfactory to the project. And as far as development standards, there's a feature at the bottom of page 5 that speaks to the setback. So setbacks from State Road 28 and US 41 to make sure that there's an adequate distance between vertical improvements like a solar panel and those roads. And so that's actually 500 feet, which is a significant setback. It's actually much greater than you'll see in other jurisdictions. So I think, again, that's an element. We want to be a good corporate citizen, a good neighbor to other residents, property tax owners, businesses within the city of Attica and the ETJ. So we want to make sure that the project fulfills that obligations. And certainly, the time that Mr. Barson and his partner have spent on this have incurred legal fees. The project pays those legal fees. So following an approval of this economic development agreement, the project would pay legal fees to the city's benefit to compensate for his and his partner's time here. So again, as Wayne offered, we're happy to have any dialogue or conversation on these points. We think that this is a very constructive document. It's a document that is very similar to what we'll see with the county. The county document will be a bit more robust, given that it will layer in certain elements with respect to, like, we have property tax abatement, which is sort of part of the conversation here with the city of Attica. So there's certain provisions about tax abatement and the statutory provisions that are required of executing on that abatement and economic development agreements related to that. But many of these provisions are copied, almost directly from those county tax agreements. And one item that, again, I think this was maybe the third or fourth item that was resolved just here in the last hour or so is an assignment provision. So there are certain situations where Dolphin Solar, the entity that is developing this, may need to create a new entity, a new project entity, or split the project into two different entities, or perhaps assign it to a different developer that that is assisting in the development of the project. Well, we want to make sure that the relationship that GeneX and Dolphin Solar is building with the city of Attica and the county, it isn't just negated or forgotten. We want to make sure that a developer who may step into GeneX's shoes or become partners is of an equal playing field. So they've demonstrated experience that would be similar to GeneX, and also has a balance sheet. So the provision in here is actually $25 million. So the $25 million balance sheet would be very indicative of a project of this size. And so again, it's just another protection for the city of Attica, one that would be very similar to the one that will be granted to Fountain County, if not exactly the same, to make sure that for the life of this project, the city of Attica is protected. But those $600,000 payments will be made in the first 4 years after project construction. So from an economic perspective, city of Attica will enjoy those dollars and cents, fairly early on. And just a few, and those payments will just start a few years from now if the project construction commences. So that's the high points, the economic development agreement. Happy to have those conversations. It would, as Mr. Barnes, I'm sure will offer, would require a motion of the council to approve, majority vote of the council to be able to approve, and then their signature page is set up for the president of the council to sign and offer that. The second document that I'm not sure, have you passed out? Second document that will be a greater conversation will be a transportation plan. So that again has to do with the use of roads and will be likely executed closer to the start of construction. But again, it's an element of your ordinance to protect the roads and the transportation side of a project of this size and scope. But I think for purposes of this evening, it probably makes sense to focus time on the economic development agreement and any questions you might have. So,
Would there be fencing around the panels?
Yeah, and I'll offer Wayne an opportunity to comment on that.
Thank you. In the project area there, inside the ETJ, there's about 10 miles worth of fencing. The total project has about, I want to say, 63 miles worth of fencing, and that fencing is a 7-foot tall woven wire 6x6 inch box farm style fence. The height is what the county specifies as the minimum height, which is 7 feet. Maximum height is 12 feet. Generally speaking, the agricultural style fence will be the fence that you'll see all throughout the project area. Specific points that have a higher requirement, such not height, but certainly a more intense requirement because of the National Electric Code, that fence will be a chain link fence. But predominantly it's the agricultural style fence. That fence will be, for the most part, screened with a double layer of evergreen trees, 15 feet on center in a double row. That species of evergreen is Virginia pine, American holly, and eastern red cedar. So we've got that three types of native species coming in, as well as pollinators. And so the entire project area changes in terms of screening species. At the end of the day, it's restorative agriculture. We're actually bringing back fence rows and plants that haven't existed sometimes for decades.
Does the borderland owners get to choose what the landscaping is going to look, what they're going to be looking at, or do you have a one look for everyone?
Well, generally it is the landscaping that's specified by our landscape architects targeting native species. Within the 2-mile fringe, your actual ordinance is a bit more specific about what that standard can be and how that would vary. So if there's a neighbor that has a specification, we'd like to have that conversation.
Okay.
We've reached out to some neighbors already to literally flush out that conversation.
Okay.
The plantings, for example, we're looking at thousands of trees. We would get these ordered years in advance, and so we want to get out, flush out that information. We've not learned anything new from anybody. In fact, most folks that we've spoken to so far are happy to hear about the native species that we're bringing back in some cases.
Thank you.
Wayne, Judd shared an email with me just a little while ago about the conversation you and I had about the setbacks. And one of my big concerns all along, just share this with the council, has been that we wanted, the reason why that setback's 500 feet was because we wanted to have this corridor, if you will, along State Road 28 and 41, and allow us to be able to annex that property in the future so we could grow the city. We're kind of landlocked here between 28 and 41. If we can't grow either one of those directions, then we can't grow. So that was the reason that we pressed for the setback all along. And I shared with Wayne the other day in a phone conversation that I see they're leasing that 500-foot setback. And I think Judd had an email from
Mary.
Mary that kind of belays some of those fears. I don't know whether you want to kind of share the gist of that or not, Judd, but just for everybody's information and full transparency here.
Who's Mary?
Mary Soliday.
That's their
Mary's my partner
Oh.
in law, so
Oh,
she's been
okay.
she represents
Okay.
the project and main point of contact with Judd.
Checking here.
I just didn't want to get down the road, a few years and we want that to happen and it couldn't. And the reason why that 500 feet was come up with was because we said that that's about what it would take for a housing development to go in along that area or a business to go in along that area. And we didn't want to preclude that from happening along that corridor.
She wrote this morning, note that I have reviewed a lease for the project near State Road 28 and US 41. The form lease provides that the project can request that land along the city's growth corridor can be removed if needed to accomplish mutual objectives of the project and the city. Thank you and happy to discuss.
To accomplish what? I'm
Mutual
sorry.
beneficial relationship
Okay,
between the
okay.
city and the project.
Okay.
So would that have to be done up front or could that be something that would happen in the future? I guess that's my big question. I just don't want to lock us into anything.
Well, I mean, in this agreement, we use the same language about, decisions that are mutually beneficial. I mean, our recognition is we want what you want, which is the expansion of the city with the 2% tax rate on commercial or 1% on the residential. We've set up the project to facilitate that. We have utility corridors that we will need to connect up the project to the right of way, just like any other development, water, sewer, electric, road cuts. For us, as you and I talked, Larry, we signed these leases well before the understanding of what the setback would look like. We're supportive of the setback, and we'll need to find the appropriate time to make modifications to facilitate next steps. So I would say sometime in the future, I think we have to work out what that looks like.
So these issues are kind of layered on top of each other, right? So a project like this has to come in years in advance of, and build relationships with landowners at first, right? To make sure that they're understanding that they have the necessary land control. And while they're working through that process, then they also have to analyze the applicable ordinance, whether that might be city or county or some municipality. And so as we layer that on top of each other, GNX wanted to build enough flexibility into their landowner lease that if they needed to adjust how much of the land they're leasing or where they're constructing solar panels, that they would have that flexibility. Now knowing that the relationship with the city and the project is such that as the city wants to grow, we want to support the city in those objectives. So there's actually a requirement and sort of an acknowledgement and a promise in the document that will seek to exercise mutual, beneficial objectives. And one of those is to make sure that there are, essentially to cut through here, that there aren't solar panels in that 500-foot setback, so that if there are growth opportunities, there may be a situation where the city can still benefit by the growth, but then the project can, the project footprint can accommodate that, right? And so I think that to the extent that the city has motivations in the near term to look to annex that property, the sooner the better for the project, because it's an ongoing design element. But I think that, in conversations with Mary and Judd and the project, I think we're well positioned to be flexible in that respect as needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you think it would be necessary to survey that 500-foot setback area? Because if the zoning was going to change on it would need its own parcel number, I would think. Do you see an impediment to doing that?
Well, I think it'll depend on what portion of the parcels is ultimately annexed. I do think some level of surveying would be helpful. I would expect that survey teams that GNX has used could be helpful in that exercise. But if the Attica line will sort of bifurcate a parcel in that process, there'll be a parcel that remains with the county and a parcel that remains with the city. I think that in a combination of the city's engineer and the project's design team, we place smarter people than you and I in a room together for an engineering purpose to kind of match that line. I'm not sure that we need to exercise that survey mechanism right now, but I think ultimately it's a good point there that we should make sure exactly kind of where that line lands.
Other than the interconnections and where you're going to have to cross the setback area to get to other utilities, do you see any other impediments to it developing as residential neighborhood?
We do not.
Yeah.
No, it's the project will provide the screening, the buffering, the setbacks.
Right.
The roadway network's there, the infrastructure's there to support any sort of footprint that you already see happening along both 28 and 40.
Yeah, I think you'd see it as a very kind of, this setback will create an environment that wouldn't be abnormal or that much of a departure from any other sort of semi-developed area that you might look to annex, right? There may be, HWC had the perfect example, right? They've got an aerial utility line running right through a future park, right? So in the same respect, if the GNX Dolphin Solar project may have a transmission line that crosses a road or otherwise, there's just kind of developmental concerns to navigate, but nothing that would be a fundamental hindrance.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that explanation.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Eric has reviewed that transportation agreement, by the way, not that you're going to be signing it tonight, and he didn't have any problems with it. So that was routine. The standards that they use for like the trench cut and backfilling and all of that standard.
And currently, Judge, just so I clarify, currently, the way it's sorted for economic development, but we don't have to put this in the economic development funds because we know where those would go then.
You do not.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Since it's being discussed, here's that, and for reference, that transportation agreement that's being discussed.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So, Judd, do we need to move on that now before we move on?
Unless you have other questions.
Yeah.
I think
Anybody else?
it's carried as far as I can carry it. Unless you have more specific things you want to address.
I hate to move on something I haven't read.
Yeah, I'd like a little bit of,
Yeah, and we don't have to. I don't think we have to do it tonight, do we?
You don't have to now.
Do you suggest we do?
well, this is kind of an odd situation because they would be voting, but next time they wouldn't be voting. But I don't like to
Oh, right.
vote on something when I haven't had it. I skimmed through it, but I've not had a chance to read a lot. But I trust that you have done due diligence from all the conversations we've had and everything else to look out, our pre-planning for the ordinance, for the setbacks and doing all the things like that we can to try to take care of our citizens and bring in a lot more opportunities and tax dollars and stuff. I'm fully supportive there, but you guys are in a different situation to vote today or not vote.
I don't know I didn't realize this was to be the last meeting of the year, but
Yes,
if
it
you
is.
if you wanted to read it and convene a short meeting to take a vote on it, that would be easy to set up and it would take 10 minutes. I would encourage you to read it. I hate that.
Yes,
and
I
mean,
I would
because we
really
were
like to
literally
read
making
something
changes when you were
before I vote
starting your
on it.
meeting. We were
Yeah.
making changes to the screen. So, would you consider, since you're going off, but the years or the month is still young, would you consider something
Sure,
with a 48-hour notice kind of
sure,
special meeting?
yes.
See, not your last meeting
It's not my
after.
last meeting after all.
Thought you were done, didn't you?
Sorry, Scott.
That's all right. No, I just was trying to be respectful that, if you get an opportunity to vote on it, you've been a part of it for quite some time now, so.
Yeah,
Do you want to pick a date on that, or do you want to, like next week is what we're probably talking about? I'm free on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, 18th, 19th, or 20th.
I'm free all next week. I can't
How about
believe
the
it.
13th? I've got a monthly area plan commission meeting scheduled, but I don't think we have anything for that meeting, so I was gonna cancel that, but we could have it at that time.
Sure.
On
So
what day?
On the
6 o'clock on
13th?
the 13th.
Is that, we don't have time for notice on that. That's 2
Right.
days from now.
Correct. I just set one up.
Oh,
Goodland
yeah, sorry.
this afternoon.
We have Board of Works on the 19th at 5.
The night, I'll be in a long plan commission meeting, but I could have somebody else here. This is just to do a one.
we could do it on the 20th.
I'm available on the 20th.
Let's do it on the 20th.
I'm gonna have to check with my people.
At what time, Larry?
Special meeting.
What time? 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock? What's good for everybody?
6, please.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock on the 20th. Anything else?
No.
Back to new business, additional appropriation, public hearing, ordinance 23-1211. And Joanne has that paperwork here, I believe.
Yeah, we gotta open a public hearing. And that
Find it.
I think I've got it. I think it's right here. Yeah, here's the ordinance that goes with that. That's what was published.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and
Let's see on that.
open a public meeting here to discuss additional appropriation ordinance 2023-1211. Whereas the Common Council of the City of Attica finds it necessary to appropriate the following additional funds in excess of the budget for the current year. Now, therefore, it be ordained that the Attica Common Council, City of Attica, Fountain County, that the expenses in the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of funds named and for the purposes specified, subject to laws governing the same. Everybody get a copy of this? Yes.
Yes. Might be
You got
easier.
what was published here.
That's what we published, yes.
What's this sheet here?
Oh.
Additional appropriations. Do we have to read each one of these? Or no? Yes?
They were advertised, right?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
You might ask the crowd if they have any questions about the transfers and address specific funds if they've got questions about specific funds.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about additional appropriations? Basically, we're just taking money from one spot and moving it to another.
This is just expenditures that were above what was budgeted for this year. For example, in 2022, the park board was planning on installing the park equipment. It was delayed and was not done in 2023. The funds for that was not budgeted in 2023, so we're requesting an additional appropriation to cover that expenditure. It was approved in 2022. It just wasn't completed in 2022. So we now have to pay for it, and we have to request the extra funding. I mean, the funding's available. That'll be submitted to the Department of Local Government Finance. It just was not included in our 2023 budget.
Any comments or questions from the council?
No.
Do we have a motion to accept the additional appropriations as documented?
I'll make a motion to accept the additional appropriations as documented.
To approve the,
Is there a number?
2023-1211C.
2023-1211C.
1211C. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
I'm not sure who needs this sponsoring council member.
I think,
Tricia.
Oh, that's got.
Patricia.
yeah, Scott seconded. Thank you.
That's actually a resolution.
We have a resolution to transfer funds between categories and within departments. Again, some year-end housekeeping here. It's 2023-1211.
And there's enough for everybody to look at. I didn't get those.
Joanne has copies.
All that is just moving funds within departments between categories. Every department has 4 categories: personal services, which is payroll, taxes, benefits. Then we have supplies, we have goods and services, and capital assets. And when one category within a department is coming up a little bit short with council approval, we can transfer funds within the department from a different category to cover those expenses. And that's all that is. We're just moving monies within the departments. Within the department.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Patricia.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-1211, transferring monies within departments.
And that's what D.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
The motion is second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And you made the motion, so you need to sign off on it. Yeah.
Do you have a copy for me or not?
And then the last one is ordinance number 2023-1211E. And it's an ordinance transferring funds from the cemetery fund, which is 2205, to the general fund, which is 1101. You may or may not remember, last December at the encouragement or recommendation of Baker Tilly, they suggested that we combine our cemetery fund, which was receiving separate property tax and revenues, and combine that with general. It would give us more flexibility with the funds. So at the end of 2022, we eliminated the cemetery fund, but we had until the end of this year to actually transfer the remaining fund balance from 2205 to 1101. All this is it's just an ordinance transferring the remaining funds, which is $66,359.64 from 2205 to 1101, from the old cemetery to general. And we've been operating the cemetery out of the general fund all year this year, and there have been no revenues received into that. This is just transferring the fund balance.
I'll make a motion
Housekeeping.
to approve ordinance 2023-1211E to transfer funds from the cemetery fund 2205 to the general fund 1101.
It's not that easy, is it?
No. it's
Do we
not.
have a motion? Do we have a second?
Go ahead.
I'll make a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
So,
That's all I've got.
next on new business is a animal permit consideration. We have a permit request from Tracy Pattengale at 933 South Perry for some type of a pig, enclosed pen with a privacy fence. Is Tracy here? No. Here's the request. We'll open the floor to discussion regarding the.
Okay, so here's my feelings on that. I'm the biggest animal lover here. You know, I'm on the board with Paws and Claws and done a lot of work there, but I feel that this type of animal doesn't belong in the city limits. I wouldn't want to live next to it. Pigs smell, especially you have to be very diligent in keeping them clean. I would not want to be next to that as a neighbor. I think that animals in this form belong out in the country. And I feel that by opening this up, we're opening ourselves up to a lot of pigs in the city limits. And we're trying to clean up the city. And we're opening up to Mr. Miller and his deputies to have a lot more ordinance violations when we're trying to clean up the city. And we're causing a lot more work for him, which we don't want to do. So why I appreciate a good potbelly pig, I have to say that the place for a pig is in the country. So I would say no. That's what my feeling is. Garrett, Mr. Chief Miller?
So we have had multiple calls. There are pigs that live inside the city.
They should
I don't
not
know
be.
if you're not
Yeah.
aware of that, but
Yeah,
we have a hard time locating their owners, but we have received multiple calls this year for pigs running about the city. Which makes for really funny jokes when police officers show up on scene. Your current contract with Paws and Claws does not include their animal control of farm animals. It's for
Right.
dogs and cats, nor is the Attica Police Department equipped to catch roaming pigs.
right. Which would be another
Or the fire
reason
department, so.
to say no to this. We're not equipped for it. Paws and
Yeah.
Claws will not pick them up.
We've occupied many hours trying to catch pigs this year.
And so we're just opening ourselves up to a whole new can of worms that we don't need in the city.
I just wanted to state those facts that we have received multiple calls this year and we.
Well, they should not, you know,
It's
they-
very hard to locate their owners once we get them caught.
yeah. So that's my feeling on pigs in the city. So that could be the name of a movie, Pigs in the City. So anyway,
Any other council members have input?
I feel the same way.
Scott?
I'm just looking at something real quick here. Basically with where they reside at, Mr. Grant, is
On the
that
corner by my house.
it's right on the corner.
Right on the corner.
Any prime location of Pine and Perry. And if it were another area within the city, I'm pretty familiar with that one. That location, I don't think would be the best for us to consider that. And I don't know how many pigs we do have in the city. I want to be supportive of all animals. But that's a really, really bad location right there to have one, no matter what, even if it's the 6-foot paneled fence or whatever else, but
they're just not conducive to city life. We have neighbors, we want to be respectful of our neighbors. Even if it was in a more desolate part of the city, we still have neighbors. Pigs smell, they're smelly animals.
should we at least give her the opportunity to, I'm surprised she's not here, but should we at least give her the opportunity to come in and present her? If it's pot belly, I don't know what it is, but should we at least do that before we make a decision?
We could table it, or we could deny the request and let her come back and request it again, either way. We have a motion either way.
I kind of like the thought of our police chief chasing pigs.
I just don't think, Scott, again, we're not set up for pigs.
I agree.
Paws and Claws will not come and get a pig.
Do we have a motion either way?
I make a motion, we deny this request.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Denied.
But I think that brings up another point from my office side, is there's currently pigs located in the city. I mean, where do we stand with that?
We're supposed to have a special permit because we went through everything with the pigeons and rewrote an entire ordinance. So if there's someone that has a pig, they need to file for a
Should,
permit.
do we want to go through our nuisance ordinance at that point?
Yes, that would be in your nuisance ordinance.
Just so that we have clarity. We are for
Do we have any other wild animals?
You never know what shows up in the cities and towns.
Next on the agenda, I have a letter from Barb Foster. She addressed it to myself and the mayor and the council. Effective December 2023, I submit my resignation from the Attica Park Board. I've enjoyed serving the community and the people I've worked with. I stepped down to further enjoy my retirement, and I'll gladly remain available for committees and other projects as they're available. Sincerely, Barb Foster. So we want to give her a big thank you for doing what she's done over all these years in our park board. She's been very instrumental in a lot of things that's happened and a lot of things that's gone on regarding the park. Nancy Mickle is here tonight, and I understand Nancy's volunteered to step up to the plate, so we're going to be nominating Nancy to take her place on the park board, and I thank you for that. Okay. I have a letter here that was written from St. Vincent's Ascension, and it was written to the Attica Mayor, Attica City Council, Williamsport Town Council, and I'll read it here real quick. In October, an accident happened in our EMS systems territory. The response and care is a testimony to the capability of our local areas, first responders, and our community's intentional decision to take care of itself. At one point in our ED, we had nursing doing emergency blood transfusion while the hospital, doing emergency blood transfusion while the Williamsport Fire Department helped ventilate. The Attica Police Chief did chest compressions. The Pine Village Fire Chief assisted the physician as a St. Vincent's nurse practitioner on chest tubes, while Warren County EMS helped manage drug administration. WCSD reached out to the family to help them get information they needed. Out of that came a very unusual situation of getting a return of pulses on a blunt force trauma cardiac arrest. It's noteworthy to point out the Attica Police Department arrived in a short time to the scene and defibrillated the patient. This is a strong example of community system that work together to provide excellent first response. Additional personnel is needed, a high level of advanced life support, and then working together with the hospital to give the patient the best chance that they could have had. I want to thank and commend the following departments for working together in an excellent manner and helping provide the community the care it needs. Attica Police Department, Attica Fire, Williamsport Fire, Pine Village Fire, Warren County EMS, Warren County Sheriff's Department. There are many others, including dispatch, that should be mentioned here but are not. Please join me in letting these and others know they deserve our appreciation. I'm privileged to be a medical director in the area that works so hard to take care of itself. Eric France, MD, Ascension St. Vincent's.
Very
Doug,
nice.
very nice. Do we have any other miscellaneous business? Anything anybody needs to bring up? Any dogs, cats, that sort of thing?
Dogs, cats.
Well, I had a guy email me a picture of a mattress that's been laying out along the road for
Oh.
quite a while. So I was going to give that to the chief, but that's not worthy of council consideration. Our next regular meeting is scheduled January 8th, but we will have this meeting on the 20th. Take a
Oh,
quick look.
Lexi, do you have something?
Was Halloween mentioned on the list? Halloween date discussion?
I did tell you I put that on the list and I didn't get it on there. Lexi would like for us to look forward and get our Halloween dates and things set well in advance so they can advertise those. I hadn't even looked at the calendar yet. Did you have a date in mind, Lexi?
If it's on the 31st, it's a Thursday.
Which would be good. So could we go ahead and tentatively set that for October 31st of next year? And that way she's got a date that she can advertise and work with.
Sure.
October 31st.
You want us, any other dates? You want us to change Christmas or anything?
Yeah.
We'll try to make you happy, Lexi. Take care of
It's
us.
all about Lexi. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I will second that.
You second that, lady.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You got one more meeting in you.
One more meeting in
I didn't
us.
know you had that coming.
Yeah, we didn't. It surprised me.